morning. Good morning, UPBOptionMillionaires.com. About 2 hours before the market's going to open for trade at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, I'll be doing a live webinar. Feel free to join in talking about unusual option action. The link is on the blog at OptionMillionaires.com. I'll put a link up at Twitter. Look at S&P 500 futures here. We've erased all of yesterday's action. Might as well just taken yesterday and just skipped it, because here we are. We've seen this so often these days where the market pulls back. We have this beautiful almost inverted head and shoulders intraday bottoming pattern here. Came all the way back, and now we're just in the overnight session meandering back up, and it's yesterday never happened. So we have Draghi out this morning from the ECB talking more in detail, in depth about the quantitative easing program. They've taken the baton from the Federal Reserve. The US dollar, the euro has been pulling back on this expected news from the ECB and Draghi. US dollar hitting a new 11-plus year high, and I've been talking about this for a while. Look at the chart here. I'll pull up a 3-year chart. Beautiful pennant pattern that we broke out of. I was talking about breaking out of this pattern. You can see it very clearly here. You look at my previous videos. Look how we've broken out of it. It's just really remarkable. The move we've had to the upside. And we're at another, at the cusp of another strong move to the upside, like we saw back at the towards the end of last year, and even when oil was at $107 a barrel back in the summer of 2014. So just something to keep an eye on there. Stronger dollars, I think that's going to be the headwind going forward, because obviously we've heard of all of those conflict in Russia, rumors in Greece, Spain and Portugal and the pigs. So let's look at some individual charts. We had Netflix yesterday came out middle of the session. You can see the high volume moved to the downside at about a little after 1 o'clock. You can see the move down, kind of recovered, and really just a 470 close. But if you look from a longer term perspective from the chart, I brought this up at Stock Twits and on the blog at Option Millionaires, how we're possibly putting in, we're up against long-term trend line resistance that goes back to September. We're pulling back from it, so there's a chance we're going to fall down, to about $400 range. This gap, a lot of people like the gaps to get filled. If that's the case, down to about 315. JB from Option Millionaires pointing out Michael Proctor, who still maintains his $50 price target. So we'll see. It's we're getting close if you do a forward split of the stock. Let's look at price line. Price line, similar kind of chart here, hitting up against long-term trend line resistance and starting to pull back. And we have this gap, same thing from earnings. I think a move down about 1,200, 1175 over the next week or two is certainly a possibility. Amazon trying to break out to new record highs here. It's above. Look at this trend line, and it's. I talk about this in the chat room at OptionMillionaires.com. It's great to put trend lines up on a chart and come back to it, and then the action just totally, it's like a magnet. So you can see we're kind of staying above this long-term trend line support, and so I'm looking for a move up to record highs for Amazon. How about ANF? Another chart that I brought up. Beautiful head and shoulders topping pattern. Did not really come to fruition right away, but here you go. We're starting to see the plunge down. I believe it's down over 15% here, down at the $20 level. You look at somewhat of a head and shoulders topping pattern. Neckline has been broken. Let's look at Google. Google also, this $510 level. I talked about this as well as a springboard. And look at the springboard we've had up. And I'm looking for that move up to long-term trend line resistance to about 587. I saw it yesterday. Look at yesterday's action. We started off the day weak, and then we just come all the way back. So the move down, and just certainly accumulation is underway for Google. It maintains the momentum that it had last week. The analysts that were downgrading the stock when it was down here, I don't know. I guess they're just going to sit and watch it move up to this level here, almost 590 for Google. The bond market, it's below long-term trend line support, so we need to really bust through this with some vigor. I'm not sure that's going to happen. If we do, I think we're going to put in a lower high here to maintain this trend line to the downside, and that's going to move us under 120, which, if you think about it, it's probably going to be good for the stock market. I also think precious metals are due for a big tumble. FCX, I've been talking about this for many years. You can see the move to the downside here. We had a nice bounce off the lows, the $17 level. I think we're going to roll over here, and we're going to see lows down to the November 2008 lows. Remember at that time they had no dividend. Company was struggling. I think it was down to about 17. It went over $100 before it split. FCX is not looking good, especially with the stronger dollar. GDX as well, gold miners, I think is heading for a move to new lows. Gold, the GLD, is going to break this trend line here of support at about 112, looking for a move down to support at 100. All right, UPB here, optionmillionaires.com. One more chart. Again, I'm doing the unusual option action live webinar, 11 a.m. this morning. Tune in. It's free. Sign up at the blog at optionmillionaires.com. Look at the VXX. Yesterday, in spite of the action to the downside, look at it. VXX sold off pretty much the entire session, getting hit. Now close to record lows. And if you just pull up this chart, it just pretty exemplifies, and you look at the breakdown out of the move up we had at the start of the year. But if you look at this chart from a longer term perspective, kind of shows you exactly what's going on in this market. There is no fear in this market. And when there's no fear, stock prices rally. So let's just one last look at S&P 500 futures before we call it a morning. We're about a little less than 2 hours before the market's going to open for trade. One thing I look for, I don't know if I brought up the chart for the S&P 500, ETF, the spiders. We're starting to roll over here. Something to keep an eye on. Support would be, let me pull up it a little closer. Support would be at this trend line here at about the 206 level. We are starting to roll over a little bit. We have a nice hammer candle yesterday. Lower prices were rejected. OTL, off the lows. I've coined that phrase quite a while ago because it's not by the dip anymore. It's off the lows. We're getting these pullbacks. You can see these wicks. Long wicks means off the lows. All right, UPB, see you in the chat room, and also 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, live webinar, unusual option action.